right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another round of a development update call. I hope you liked the announcement 10 days ago regarding the GGE, because today it's actually exactly 3 months till we're gonna launch the GGE. So, yeah, you can start the countdown from today. 3 months from now on, it's gonna be super exciting. I am Michael Bille, working in business development at Mintlayer, and I'm joined once again by our CTO, Ben Marsh. Welcome to the call, Ben.
Hello, hello.
I know that you're actually having your Christmas holidays this week, so I really appreciate you taking time for this call to our community. How are you doing this December?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, it's going well. How are you?
Oh, I'm good too. Good too. I just arrived to my family house in Scandinavia this weekend. So yeah, settling in and meeting the family is always a good thing when you're working abroad.
Yeah,
So yeah, good here. Thank you. And how's the team going?
yeah, it's going well. So yeah, a few people are having some time off at the moment because obviously it's that sort of festive period. So some people are off this week, some people are off next week. Not everyone is off, but a lot of people are. So it's nice that people can have a bit of relaxation at the end of the year. So everyone has been working pretty hard throughout the year. Um, so yeah, it's nice to see people relaxing and taking things a little bit more slowly.
Yeah, I'll say it's a deserved rest they're gonna take like this week and the next, or even both maybe. Well deserved, and then they're of course back full of energy in December and ready for a super exciting 2023 year where we have a lot of things on our roadmap. And yeah, we need the helps and skills to make this great. But brilliant, Ben. So today will be the last developing update call for this year. So we will make this one kind of special. As Ben, I will ask you to just take us through a year of developing, like what we have been processing and done for this year. And as we have a bunch of great new community members, so maybe Ben, you can start explaining the old substrate plan, and more importantly, why we decided to build our own code base and architecture instead of the substrate plan.
Yeah, so this was the very end of last year. So we had a testnet release and we had built this using a framework called Substrate. Now, Substrate is great, but it has a number of limitations. So first and foremost, we ran into a limitation around the idea of um, finalization or canonicalization, as Substrate likes to refer to a specific part of it. So we actually have an article on the site which goes into this in more detail. So I won't go into this in massive amounts of detail here because it won't be overly exciting. And those who want to read more can do so on the website. But the sort of gist of it is that we would have had to make some relatively significant changes to Substrate and the way it works in order to make it work for Mintlayer. So if we want to do large, or I should say long rather than large reorgs, then we would have run into issues. So this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. This wasn't the only issue we ran into with Substrate. We ran into a few. Their sort of love of macros makes debugging Substrate quite horrible, to be honest. And one of the big things was the lack of documentation, which actually is the reason it took us so long to bump into this issue with canonicalization and finalization, because it's not really mentioned anywhere. So this was found looking at the code to try and work out something else. There are some comments in the code base, but no real documentation talking about it anywhere else. So we made the decision at this point to move off of Substrate. So obviously this meant we were going to have to do something else. Now, that didn't necessarily mean we had to start from scratch and write our own code base. but we had to do something else. So we had a few ideas, one of which was to fork another code base. There are pros and cons of doing that. So the pro, of course, being you get up and running a lot quicker. The con, well, the major con, being that you're left with the technical debt of that project. They are not your project. So they have made design decisions like this finalization thing in Substrate. It works fine for Polkadot. It just doesn't work for what we're proposing. And we have to deal with these issues in other people's code bases too, whether that's Bitcoin or we had forked one of the other Rust cryptocurrency projects. We're always going to be design decisions that work for them, but not for us. So either we have to try and refactor that code base to remove them, or we just have to sort of put up with them and go with it. And it was a big question. And we did it relatively democratically, where we took everyone in the engineering team's opinion into account here. And we essentially came to the conclusion we should start our own code base. If we want Mintlayer to be exactly what we have proposed, and we want to avoid some of the mistakes that some of the older code bases made, which we have learnt over the last decade or so, there are better ways to do these things. And if we wanted to avoid this sort of technical debt and these design decisions that work for other people but not for us, then the best approach for us was going to be to write our own code base. So then the next question was, do we stick with Rust? Do we go to another language? Do we go to Haskell? Do we go to C++? And again, we made this decision democratically and we decided to stick with Rust. In retrospect, it was definitely the right decision to, one, start our own code base, and two, use Rust. So I think everyone in the engineering team is entirely happy with this decision. So we have essentially spent a year working on this code base now. We are approaching 100,000 lines of code now. We've just passed the 1,000 unit test mark. So yeah, it's going well. We have made a lot of design decisions based on the things we know that work out of Bitcoin, for example. If you look at the mempool or you look at the peer-to-peer stuff, you'll see lots of decisions that were made because it works in Bitcoin, so why would we change it? So there are a few ways, for example, the mempool, it works the same way as Bitcoin, but it's been written slightly differently to make it slightly more rusty and slightly nicer to use. But yeah, lots of design decisions have just come straight from Bitcoin. And we have kind of tried to use the things we know that work where possible. So while we're writing this code, the main thing we're focusing on is security. So we perhaps could have written this slightly quicker than we have done, but we've taken our time and we are proving things out as we go, and we are doing things in the safest, most secure way possible. Which means that if something has been provably secure in another cryptocurrency, then we'll pay attention to it. If other people have had issues with something in the past, then we will look at what those issues were and we will then work on it ourselves. We now have an internal release where it's a working blockchain, essentially. So in the last year, we've created a working blockchain. It has all of the key bits that you need, obviously, for it to be a working blockchain. So there is a database layer, which allows us to store things on the local node. This is a fork of the Rust LMDB wrapper, which came from Mozilla. The reason it's a fork is we discovered some issues in the Rust that was being used there, so we had to fix those. So there are a few little bugs, which, yeah, it didn't seem to be particularly well supported upstream anymore. So we decided to fork and fix those locally. We have the networking stuff and the P2P stuff. at the moment, we are still using libPTP as the sort of overarching library for the P2P stuff. We are in the process of trying to remove it as a dependency. So we've run into a few issues with libPTP as well. So the intention is that we will scrap it as a dependency and essentially just write what we need from scratch based on libPTP, but again, just writing what we need and not being a library where we have to support anything and everything. We have written a crypto subsystem, so we have the cryptography code that's needed for doing things like block signing and signing transactions and generating addresses and all these sorts of things. So we support BEC32 encoded addresses, and that is the only address encoding format that we currently support. It's likely that in the future we will add more, but that is probably going to be it for the time being. Going back to the crypto subsystem actually quickly, because I realized I forgot something, is in the future, of course, we're going to support a privacy token standard on top of Mintlayer, MLS02s. So there has been some amount of work there on how we would integrate this into Mintlayer and what needs to be done, although we haven't actually started work on any of the confidential transaction stuff. We have designed the crypto subsystem in such a way that it will be easy for us to integrate all of these changes in the future. So we have a relatively long roadmap with lots of things in it, and we are making design decisions right from the word go to be able to integrate all of these things in a relatively easy way as we progress. We have obviously designed all of the things that you kind of need to be a blockchain, so chain state stuff, the UTXO stuff. So these are the things that essentially represent the blockchain, is I guess the best way to phrase it. We have a relatively stable implementation of all of these sorts of things now. It will probably change in the future because that's what code bases do, but it's stable for the time being. We currently have a proof of work blockchain. So the reason it's proof of work is pretty trivial to implement. So very, very early on, about a year ago now, we implemented proof of work consensus because it would allow us to build the rest of the blockchain around that consensus system without really having to worry about proof of stake, because proof of stake is not trivial, to say the least. So proof of stake is more or less the last major thing we have to finish at the time being. So we've made the decision to postpone the testnet slightly. So it will come in the new year now. And the reason for that is we still need to finish the proof of stake. So in doing the proof of stake, there has been an awful lot of research. So reading papers, reading other code bases, as well as for designing and planning things and testing things out, proving things formally. There are lots and lots of scraps of paper with maths on laying around these days. And we are going back to this whole thing I mentioned earlier of wanting to do things in a safe and secure way. So we are not rushing this. We are writing our proof of stake in a provably secure way, which means that it is taking a little longer than we would have perhaps hoped. So yeah, we have made the decision to slightly postpone the testnet release in order to ensure that the code we release is the best possible code we can release. We would rather delay slightly and take our time than release something that's going to be flawed in some way, which I think is something that the community will agree is a good approach to doing this. I would much rather people's funds and the consensus was secure, then we rushed something out purely to meet a deadline that we proposed a long time ago, before we were sat actually working on the proof of stake. So yeah, it's still heavily under development for proof of stake. So as was mentioned earlier, I am technically on holiday at the moment, but my time right now is just taken up with reading proof of stake consensus papers, because there are so many that I've fallen behind slightly. So we've been doing more developmenty bits. But yeah, so it's been my next 2 weeks just reading essentially. So we are working heavily on it. But yeah, it's going to mean that we push the development back slightly.
All right, Ben. Thank you so much for this. Outstanding work progress you guys have been doing this year. It sounds amazing. And again, it's just like building a blockchain, especially like the Mintlayer one here, is just like super complex. It's so many different components and technology that have to kind of merge together and work as a one single source. If I can say it like that, it's just like for me it's just like I'm not technical guy, so for me it's just fascinating to hear how everything works in the background and what you guys are working with and how complex this is. So yeah, amazing. Heads off for you guys for doing this.
Yeah, I mean, so I would like to say that for someone who has an understanding of either blockchain or Rust, our code base is going to be pretty approachable. Obviously, if you're not a developer, then you're probably not going to find it too easy to understand for obvious reasons. But if someone is a developer or has a deep understanding of blockchains, but looking at our code base, it should be pretty trivial for someone to do so. So it has been set out in subsystems which are pretty logical. If you look at the GitHub repo, you'll be able to work out what is what pretty easily. And the code is nice, if I say so myself. Now, admittedly, I haven't actually written all that much of it. I don't write that much code on a day-to-day basis anymore. But we have pretty stringent rules around what is going to be merged into the code base. And our review process is relatively strong, which means that, yeah, the code which is actually being merged is pretty clear. So if someone wants to go and have a look and try and work out what is going on at the moment, then yeah, feel free to do so. And if you notice something that you think should be changed, then create a pull request. And yeah, we're more than happy to have other people starting to get involved in this code base. It's an open source project, so we'd be more than happy to start receiving code from other people at this point. Yeah.
Sounds good. Can you maybe explain exactly where can they find this?
Yeah, so if you go to the GitHub, you will say if you go to github/mintlayer/mintlayer core, you will find the repo. So if you go to the Mintlayer website, you will find a link to the GitHub repo. I'm sure it's on Telegram somewhere. If you go digging, perhaps we can get someone in the people who deal with the social media stuff to post some links to it later today, so it will be findable by people more easily. But yeah, so have a look at the code base. If you're able to contribute to it, then yeah, feel free to do so. We are a friendly bunch. If you have questions about something, then someone will be around to answer. And if you want to make some pull requests or something, then feel free to do so.
Yeah, that's a good idea to have like a link to the GitHub as well, because then all the great open source developers can like work on it as well, or take a look at it and come with feedback and questions and everything. So we will definitely do that. That's a really good idea.
So something we've been thinking about for the new year is releasing something for some definition of something. to introduce the code base in a slightly more formal way. So whether that's a series of articles or a video, I'm not really sure. And I'm not quite sure when we're going to have time to do this yet, but we will endeavor to do this at some point. And as I said, quite what form this will take, I don't know, but we want to try and do something to introduce the code base to try and make this sort of onboarding process a little bit easier. Because although the code base will be relatively easy for people to sort of grasp, it's still a massive project already, and it's only going to get bigger. So it can be a little bit testing to work out exactly how everything links together and how it all works together. So us formalizing this is something we have been talking about for about a month or so now. And we intend to do it in the new year at some point.
All right, yeah, that would be fascinating to have like an easier overview to exactly what this code base is about and what it does.
Yeah. So if we do that, it will probably be a couple of us from the engineering team who sat and did it. Yeah. So we have an idea of how to do it. So we did have a test run a while ago about how to go over the code base with someone. But we did it with a chap who is a software engineer. So perhaps it was slightly easier for him to follow than it would be someone without that sort of technical background. But we have an okay idea of how we could do it. It's just the biggest two things are one, the format this takes. So is it a video? Is it a series of articles? Is it a single article? Probably not, because that would probably be too long. But series of articles or a video, not sure. And the other one is when we're going to actually have time to do it. Once I have an answer to both of those, we will have a go at this.
yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, as you mentioned, like you guys already made like 100,000 lines of code. Was that the number?
Yeah, just under.
That's a huge, and yeah, proof of stake is the last task that is missing for the testnet, and again, just like as always, like security and quality is over any deadline or anything to be rushed through. We value the security and quality because because we gotta take care of people's funds and everything. So we want to make sure everything is in high quality and yeah, and there is no mistakes or error or anything in those products. So that's kind of my very briefly recap of your good explanation.
Yeah, so there are a couple more things to go through as well on top. So moving away from the core node now. So there are a couple of other projects, I suppose, is the best way to call it, to quickly review. So let's go to the launch site next. So it's about a year ago now that the launch site came live, and we had a few pre-sales on the launch site. So those of you who are on Telegram and those of you who pay attention to the launch site will have noticed there have been some updates on it recently, and that it will be used as part of a TG for those who were involved in those pre-sales in the past. So I won't say exactly what is planned for the launch site, so I'm going to keep that a bit of a secret for now. But I will say it's going to be used again relatively soon, and that it's going to become part of the wider Mintlayer ecosystem. So we have a few things planned for the launch site, which, are going to mean it becomes a little bit more active again than it has been for the last few months or so. So I will say that if you're not already a member of the launch site, it is probably worth joining, because there will be some bits happening on there in the relatively short future.
Ben, I like how you're like giving us a cliffhanger, just like something's gonna happen, but we don't know yet. So I like it.
So there are a few things planned for it, both in the sort of near future and in the more distant future. We have plans for it. So in the near future, there may be some more Mintlayer things planned, and then as time goes on, the idea is it's going to evolve into a part of a wider Mintlayer ecosystem. So there will be some things for, well, I guess the ecosystem, I suppose, is the best way to phrase it. So for projects that are building on Mintlayer and things like this, we plan to sort of transform the ecosystem, for a launch site into a sort of ecosystem website to some extent. And yeah, so we have a few things planned there.
Yeah, super interesting, super interesting. I like that. Yeah, Ben, do you have anything more you want to add?
Yeah, so we've so I'm going to move on from the launch site now. So
Yeah.
it's difficult for me to talk about it without giving too much away. So I'm trying not to give anything away there. So let's move on to the wallets. So we've got two wallets now. We have the mobile wallet that we've been working on for not quite a year, but 9-ish months, 10 months, something like this. And then the browser extension wallet, which we've been working on for significantly less time, 5 months, something like this. 6 months maybe. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. So let's start with the mobile wallet. So the mobile wallet is of course live at this point for both Android and iOS. So it is originally a fork of an existing wallet, so we didn't have to write everything from scratch. So there's no point reinventing the wheel when, I mean, someone's already done the work for us. So there was no real point in us doing it. So we spent some time making it a bit Mintlayery, and we have now sort of diverged from that original code base a fair amount. So we've changed a few things, we've fixed a few bugs, and we have created a relatively robust testing framework around the mobile app, which didn't exist before. So it's one of those things that, yeah, sure, it worked before and people used it, but that doesn't really fill me with confidence. I like things to be a little bit more formal. So we've created this big test framework around it now. So everything is slowly but surely being proved out is working correctly and being safe and secure and all these sorts of things. And we are starting to release more and more features. So now the test framework is up and going. We are back to working on features again properly. So we have the Bitcoin support already, which is live. We have the Lightning Network support already, which is live. And we are now working on things like the entropy generation, a few other little bits, which will be relatively small updates, which will be coming out in the near future. So we have also started work on the hardware wallet integration. So there should be an update on that relatively soon, although it is not finished by any stretch of the imagination. There should be an update on it relatively soon. Yeah, so the mobile wallet, for the next few months or so, we will keep ticking along, adding new features. And the idea is by the time that the Mintlayer mainnet is released, the mobile wallet will support Mintlayer, will support MLT. So when the mainnet comes along, if you have Mojito installed, you will be able to send and receive Mintlayer tokens, MLT. You will be able to create tokens in the app, so MLS01s, MLS03s. You'll be able to receive those tokens. Yeah, the idea is it will be the first sort of stopping point for people who want to actually interact with the Mintlayer chain. So we have been doing a fair amount of planning work on how this will be integrated. Some basic work has started going on as well, and we're slowly but surely starting to move in that direction now, where we will not only be a Bitcoin / Lightning network, if you want to separate that out from Bitcoin wallet, but also a Mintlayer wallet as well. So we're slowly heading down that direction now as the core chain is starting to mature. Yeah. I mean, of course, we have the web wallet companion to the mobile wallet. So the idea is it will be more or less identical. So we want the user interface to be as similar as possible. The features will be the same. So we are currently playing a little bit of catch up because, of course, the mobile wallet came not only first, but also some of the work was already done, whereas the web wallet has been written from scratch. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of a game of catch up going on still. But we're heading towards the point now where we're getting ready to release it. We have most of the key features from the original Mojito release finished now. So if you remember back to before we released the Lightning Network on the Mojito mobile wallet, the things that existed then exist in the web wallet now. And then the idea is, as we move forward, the Lightning Network will be integrated over the next few months or so, and we will try and keep them more aligned. So as we release a feature for the mobile app, we will try and release it at roughly the same time for the browser extension as well. I say roughly the same time because I know if I say at the same time, it won't happen, because that's just the way the world works. If you make a promise, then something gets involved and stops you from being able to keep that promise. So we will try and keep them as aligned as possible, but obviously there may be times where that isn't entirely possible and we will stray from that slightly. But we want them to be two versions of the same project or product. Perhaps is a better way to phrase it, almost. So yeah, we will try and keep them aligned, and as development happens on one, it will happen on the other. So the entry generation thing that I've mentioned a few times now, both in the community calls and today, we are working on that at the same time in both. For example, this will be released at more or less the same time. At least the development will be finished at the same time in both. So yeah, I mean, the review process when we submit the app for review may stop it being released at the same time, but at least it will be submitted at roughly the same time. So yeah, of course, the web wallet again, we are working on hardware wallet integration as well, and we will go the same route with the web wallet as we will with the mobile wallet, where everything will be both Bitcoin and Mintlayer compatible. So again, by the time the mainnet rolls around, there will be a browser extension wallet to send and receive MLT, to create MNS01 tokens or MS03 tokens, and to send and receive those tokens. So yeah, again, lots of things going on there, and we should see some exciting updates on the browser extension wallet in the near future. There is, of course, a third wallet, which is going to be let's call it the node wallet. So it's the wallet that we will be released with the testnet right on the first day, and will have the ability to stake MLT and these sorts of things. So this is also under development as we speak. So if there's not an open pull request, there will be very soon, covering large chunks of this. So yeah, we're heavily underway with that as well. So the Mintlayer ecosystem relatively soon will consist of the 3 separate wallets, 2 light wallets, and then the actual node wallet, which will allow you to do things like staking and these sorts of bits. So yeah, we are heading towards having all of these sort of, almost said projects on the periphery, but that's not quite fair because they are essential parts of the Mintlayer blockchain. So all of Mintlayer and all of its sort of parts that users require to actually be able to interact with the blockchain are heading towards a point where they're sort of coming to fruition now, and yeah, we are getting towards releasing, I suppose. We're starting to get excited. Again, we are pushing the testnet release back a bit, but we are heavily or rapidly moving towards being ready to do this now.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It sounds good. It's all the hard work, it pays off now. So even though the testnet might be postponed a bit, but then we have a lot of feature already ready to bring on the testnet. But yeah, thank you for the recap of the free wallets and update on that. It's fascinating to see how it progress. Anything else, Ben, you want to update on the development?
I don't think so. So I've covered all of the key projects that are going on at Mintlayer and the engineering team. So
Yeah.
I mean I've probably missed something because that's just the way the world works. But
How
I
about
think I've hit all of the key points.
yeah, a lot of key points and all my notes. Yeah, you hit them all on your good recap, so that's good. What about the open position and Mintlayer? Are there still some available, or how does that look
Yeah,
at your end?
yeah, of course. So essentially all of the positions that were open last time are still open. So although we have actually expanded the core node team since we last spoke, so we have hired one more person, we still have an open position or two before. Um, so yeah, we're still looking to hire people there. We're still talking to both web and mobile developers as well. And we've actually opened a new position as well. So we are currently hiring for a QA engineer. So someone to come on and help with testing of specifically the mobile wallet and the web wallet. So we only put this job description up last week. We've had a few people apply already. But yeah, so this is relatively new at the moment. So we're looking for someone who has experience with both manual and automated testing, who is comfortable with mobile development and web development. They don't have to be a developer, but they have to at least be comfortable with the ideas there. And they will essentially help expanding the test frameworks that we've already put in place, and yeah, just essentially breaking things so that we can catch these bugs earlier and quicker than we would do otherwise. So by hiring someone specifically to do this, it will free up the developers a little bit, and we can speed up the development of both projects slightly, and we will have someone who just breaks things all day for us. So yeah, this is a new position. So if anyone is interested in that, then you can find it on the Mintlayer website, and just like before, just follow the instructions there, and yeah, we can have a chat and see where it goes.
Yeah, sounds good, Ben. And yeah, it's always a good sign, like when we are searching for developers and testing and everything, we are making a lot of progress on the protocol. So that's super cool. But yeah, I think we should wrap it up. Ben, any final words here of the last call of the year?
I don't think so. I don't think there's anything else from me. No.
All right. Well, that's all we got time for today. And all who joined us, thank you for your support. We appreciate this. Please remember to join our official Telegram channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And remember, GG will happen in exactly 3 months of today, the 21st of March. And as Ben also mentioned, remember to sign up for the launch site platform and check out our open position at Mintlayer. Ben, thank you so much for joining the call during your holidays.
There is.
It sounds good. And from the whole Mintlayer team, we wish you a Merry Christmas, everyone. And yeah, thank you for joining us on this community call. And I will see you next time. Ciao.
Cheerio.